best audience in the world. Thanks for always tuning in, especially those folks of you who always listen to the end. The one thing I found with our podcast is the more I talk to guests, the more I feel them out, the more we get to know them, the more we expunge all this wonderful, delicious information from them, and the conversation just gets even more richer at the end. So please be sure to listen all the way to the end, or you can skip the end. Hey, I don't care, as long as you get there one way or another. Anyway, we've got a wonderful guest today, but be sure to tell your friends, neighbors, and relatives to go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, hit that bell notification button, go to Google Play and iTunes to take and subscribe to the thing. Just grab your friend's phone and just hit that subscribe button. They'll thank you later, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, we've got a wonderful guest. As always, we have the best guest, Nichole Carlson. Nichole Carlson is a high-performance coach, and for 12 years, she's got a really interesting story. I was talking to her in the pre-show. Nichole was following the American dream, quote unquote, with the husband, the house, the career, but she was miserable. Ever had that happen to you guys? Let's find out what she learned. It wasn't until her mom passed away at only 47 that she realized life was short. She got a divorce, sold her house. One day she quit her job, sold her car, and an hour later, and the next day she was on a one-way ticket to Spain and traveled for the next 10 years. She even got to the point where she was homeless, eating out of dumpsters, which we just call England. But then she rebuilt her life, started competing in bodybuilding competitions, and started her own coaching business. So this is going to be really interesting to talk to her. She works with 6 to 7 figure earners who are very successful, but still struggling with stress, anxiety, and the overwhelm of inside they feel like they're just not happy. Welcome to the show, Nichole. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me, Chris.
Awesome. Awesome. As we were talking in the pre-show, I think there's a lot of parallels between what you found in your life, or I'm assuming there are. So we're going to find this out as we go through this hour-long journey with you and our audience. So give us some plugs where people can take and look up you on the interwebs.
Sure. I am on my website. Obviously, it's NicholeCarlson.com, Nichole with an H. And then I am on Facebook a lot, and you can go to my personal page where I have a lot of information on myself. And then I have a Facebook page called Flip the Switch, and I actually have a show where I have guests and we talk about stuff that high performers or very successful people would want to listen in. So
that's freaking awesome. That's awesome. So you've got a wonderful journey. I guess let's start from wherever the beginning is for you, and what started you on. I guess what got you to the point of having what maybe society told you would make you happy. Who was it that told you you should get the wife and the husband and the house and the career, and that'll make you happy?
I think it was just society telling me what I was supposed to do. And I didn't really know what I wanted for myself. So I just kept taking the next step in what I thought society wanted for me. My parents were very supportive. If I didn't want to go to college, I'm sure they would have been like, okay, well, do something else. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I kept doing the next logical step. And so I went to college and got my MRS degree, which, if you guys don't know that, it means getting out of college and then getting married right away. The MRS misses. And so I just kept taking the next step until finally I found myself at a point where I was a software engineer, which was totally wrong for me. I was married to a man that I didn't trust, and we had this house that just felt so empty. And I had no next step, right? I knew I didn't want children, especially with being unhappy. So that was not a next step for me. And so I just was able to reflect on the fact that I was so unhappy. But then the problem was I felt so guilty because on the outside, it looked like I had everything. Mm-hmm. And on the inside, I just felt like empty. I felt like I was longing for passion, excitement, joy. And I felt like I should have those things. And so I didn't really know where to go because I felt like I was already at the top.
Mm-hmm. So when did you recognize that? I mean, how did it become a breaking point for you where you're just, you went to the window and said, I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore, sort of thing?
Well, I was actually married for 12 years. So I stayed for a long time. And it wasn't until my mom got cancer, and she was 47. And she just, the last year she was alive, she talked about all these things that she still wanted to do. And I was, in my late 20s, and I thought, oh my God, if I only had 20 years, it's still not enough time. So it was after she passed away that it was really a kind of a gift to me, because she handed me my life and said, like, go live your life. She didn't actually do this, but this is what was going on in my head. And so I ended up getting a divorce and selling my house. And then I quit my job one day, sold my car an hour later, and the next day I was on a one-way ticket to Spain. And I didn't look back. I mean, I was terrified, but I felt like I had lost everything that I ever wanted. And so there was nowhere else to go. So I was like, I'm going to go travel and figure this out.
Did you feel like you lost, like, the essence of who you were? I don't know, your soul? Because you must have been pretty miserable. I mean, you must have, you gave it the slog. You gave it the 12 years of marriage. You did everything you were supposed to do, and you were just miserable. You were unhappy. And so I mean, what was the final breaking point? That it was your mom's inspiration. You just said, screw it, I'm just done. I'm out.
It was a lot of things. It was the fact that I didn't trust my husband, and then that anxiety was building up. I hated software engineering. In my 20s, my parents were together until my 20s, and in my 20s, I watched my parents split up, which I never saw coming. And then my parents go through bankruptcy, and then my mom get cancer. And I just watched all this happen while I was in this perfect life, and realizing that it could all go to shit. It can all
really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't have that much time. And I was living all their pain, because even though I had all this stuff, it didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
And so it was really a bunch of things that was building up that pushed me to the point where I had so much pain that I had to leave. And honestly, I felt so bad, because I felt like he could find somebody who could appreciate him, because I did love him and I wanted better for him, which sounds weird, but I did want better for him, because I wasn't happy, and I knew that he should be with somebody that, because he could make somebody happy. Yeah, and so I left with the hope that it would be better for him and me.
Yeah, it's I mean, you don't have trust in a relationship. I mean, that's one of the core foundations of stuff. And I imagine, did some of it play into seeing your parents' relationship fall apart, and you're just like, this is probably the pending future where I'm going in my thing? Because, maybe you grew up like maybe some people do, where they're like, they love each other and they're going to be together forever, and I want a relationship like that.
Yes.
And then you come to find out that it might have been a little bit of a facade, that, and not everything is perfect. It's an interesting journey you went on. So why did you pick Spain?
It was a cheap one-way ticket to Europe.
All right.
I could get there for $300.
There you go.
That's an easy decision. And then I could just travel all over, because once you're in Europe, you can just keep going.
So part of this was the cathartic journey to maybe find yourself or find what makes you happy.
Yes. Well, I knew I never really knew what I want. I never really felt comfortable in my own skin. And I think this happens to so many of us. And then, of course, like, I grew up an Army brat. I lived all over, the States, and we lived in Germany, and I moved around and I traveled. So I had that in my blood. And people always said, oh, you'll grow out of it. I still haven't grown out of it. So it was the one thing that I really connected with in my life. And I just was like, well, I'm going to go travel. I'm going to figure this out. Couch surfing had just come up, and I was like, well, I can do couch surfing. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. There's quite a community on the couch surfing. I think it's couchsurfing.com.
Yes.
And it's quite a community, just like the Airbnb community.
Yes.
A lot of trust. I've had friends. I remember when my friend first started doing it in LA. It's like, yeah, these people, they're couch surfing. They've been here for like a week, and we're all good friends and kumbaya. And I'm just like, you have strangers in your house for okay. I can barely put up with me in my house or my dogs, for that matter, especially when they pee on my floor. That's another story.
Well, I didn't pee on anyone's floor, so I think I was a welcome guest.
Obviously, it's a good thing your house broken. I'm not. I'm still working on it. I'm not getting enough treats, clearly. But my puppy is also, so, we're sharing the same pain and learning together. It's a teaching, educating thing. So you kind of just bought into societal's thing that if you do this stuff, if you perform, if you dance the monkey dance that everyone's dancing, you'll find happiness, you'll be complete. And you didn't find that. You didn't find that the mold for everyone, or what's supposed to be for everyone, or society suggests is for everyone, isn't always the mold to make everyone happy. Right. So what happened when you landed in Spain? I imagine you had a couple bags or a backpack on you.
I had a backpack, and I just traveled around for about 8 months, and I for that trip. And I went to Spain, Portugal, Italy, Holland, England, Ireland. I think that might be it for that trip. But yeah, I just traveled all over. I biked all over Holland, and I got to feel what I wanted to feel. I got to feel alive. I got to feel free. I actually had all those feelings that I should have been, that I thought I should have been feeling when I had it all. And it was just so liberating and freeing. And so even after that trip, I kept traveling and kept going. I did keep going back to software engineering and getting contract jobs and thinking, okay, good. This one's only 6 months. I can endure 6 months so I can go travel again.
That's the great thing about your business. You can do a lot of contract work, and you can work remotely and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a great thing about you guys' business.
Yeah.
So you did all this. You started finding that you loved it. Let me ask you this: 2 words, freedom or security. If you were to say what was the top words that are the most important to you in your life, would you pick security or freedom?
That is, I would say freedom, but that's a really interesting question, because I know from my experiences that there's no such thing as either. You create both of those feelings inside yourself. So a lot of people, of course, we need to feel secure, right? But a lot of times you are secure and you're not feeling that. So we think that, a job is going to make us secure. A relationship is going to give us that secure feeling or whatever. But really, all these things in our life are always temporary. Everything is temporary. So you're never secure unless that feeling is coming from inside of you.
That's very true. I learned this. I learned a bit of this in Zen after losing my dog to cancer last year, and realizing that things are very what's the right word? Things are very transitional in life. You don't ever own them; they pass through your life, and owning things or trying to hold on to things that really aren't yours. I mean, they're just people that walk with you for a while, or things that walk with you for a while. And being unhappy because you can't control that, something you can't control is certainly going to make someone unhappy and stuff. So it's interesting that way. So you ended up eating out of dumpsters. I guess we have to hear the dark part of your story too.
Yeah. So I actually had this was a money mindset thing, and a lot of people have money mindset issues, but mine was super obvious because we had a lot of money. We were both software engineers, And I felt like the more money we had, the more we grew apart. And so I was really resentful by the time I was traveling, to where I was like, I'm done with all this shit. I don't need any of this. And I can be happy with nothing. And I was out to prove that to myself. I was so adamant. I was so stubborn and resentful that I found a group of people that were, I didn't even realize that I was homeless until a couple days into it, because we were hitchhiking, and do you know what squatting is?
Yeah, where you squatted. Yeah. I'm very familiar, right in Vegas here during the home recession. That was going on a lot.
So squatting, for the listeners who don't know, is where you stay in somebody's apartment. So I found this group of friends, or somebody's apartment where it's vacant. So you find a vacant house or a vacant apartment, and you let yourself in, and then you kind of live there. So I found.
Now, was this in America or was this in Europe?
It was in England. It just escaped me. Banksy's hometown. I can't remember. But it was like a couple hours outside of London. And so I ended up squatting, and it wasn't until a couple days in when I actually realized that we were homeless, and not just having, because I was doing it because I don't know.
Were you doing it because you were going one way with the throttle, and then you're like, screw this, I'm so unhappy. Yes. You throw the throttle the other way.
Yes.
And you sometimes go back, you're so far, like, say, to the right, and you throw the throttle to the left, and then you realize that maybe I should be in a safety zone in between or something.
I was so angry with money. I was so resentful that it came between, in my marriage, and it messed up my parents' marriage, and which wasn't true. But I was so angry that I actually put myself in this place where I was homeless and eating out of dumpsters and doing it out of resentment and stubbornness.
I will not be happy with money, and I'll prove it to you.
I didn't need it. Right. And, and that was fun for a while, but that is not how I wanted to live. And I was standing in line at a soup kitchen when I realized, there was a point where I had it all and I was unhappy, and now I have absolutely nothing. And I'm totally happy and fulfilled. But this is not the way I want to live my life. And I know now what it takes to be happy. So I'm going to go back and rebuild my life. And so, that was the only soup kitchen line that I stood in. And that was a pivotal moment for me.
So that was the bottom where you went, okay.
Yeah, it was a moment of clarity.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. So how did you dig out of that? I'm sure a lot of people want to know where. I mean, it's tough to be down there. You had some great skills with software. What were the next steps you took once you decided, okay, I've had enough of this test drive?
Well, I ended up hitchhiking for a little bit longer, went to Ireland, and then booked a trip back to Texas. And I ended up visiting a friend of mine in Austin. And I decided that I was going to move in with him. And so I just, had him make a copy of his key and started paying him rent, and kind of like paid him a little bit of rent so I could stay there. And I got another contract job, and then kind of dug my way out doing contract jobs in Austin, and started my life back in Austin.
Nice. So that worked out well for you.
Yeah.
It's amazing, the couch surfing community, and I think a lot of people go through what you went through. I went through the same sort of similar catharsis when I was a kid. I grew up poor. And so for me, the equation of money solves everything. Money gives you happiness. All the things that I didn't have by growing up dirt poor. We were so poor that we had the welfare cans of soup and food in the fridge, and I couldn't bring my friends over because my friends, if they saw the food, would be like, your parents are poor, you're on welfare. and it was incredibly embarrassing to me. And so I wanted the opulence of everything I'd seen growing up in Beverly Hills when I was a kid, that my parents never had. They managed an apartment community in Beverly Hills. So I lived around the opulence of everything in Hollywood, but we didn't have the money for it. And so, yeah, I built my businesses. I got all the big houses and cars and lived all that great life. And I just found that the more money I seemed to make and the more stuff I acquired, and I acquired a lot of stuff. I mean, I was like, as George Carlin tells that bid joke that he does, you need more stuff, and then you got to get stuff to put your stuff in to get more stuff so you can put more stuff and more stuff. And, more shit and more shit. And, so that was my life. And I remember, I think my breaking point was, because I remember I was really unhappy and I was spending, I think every night I was going to bed with half a bottle of vodka. I was functioning really well. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I was abusing it. And I remember thinking, is this all there is? This is the dream that I've waited my whole life for? This is, I'm not even happy, and I'm miserable. Everyone hates me. Everybody, I lived that life of is the Tommy Shaw song from Styx? As long as I'm buying, everyone's happy. Sort of thing. And I watched, I think it was the Fight Club that popped me. And, I remember seeing the scene in it where Brad Pitt says to, I forget the other gentleman, a famous actor, Norton, he says to him, I don't know. I just, my dad said, go to school. And so I went to school. And then he said, and I said, Dad, what do you do next? And he goes, go to college. And then I said, Dad, what do I do next? And he says, get married. And, it's just this thing. And he's still unhappy, and he's jumping through all the hoops that society gave him. And it's sad that people don't question a lot of these paradigms. And thankfully in our society, especially with technology and being able to be mobile and jobs being able to work now that are outside of, going to work in the IBM thing with your single black suit, because colors are not allowed. We now live in a society where there's all sorts of different colors and everything else that go on. So it's great you found that, went through that catharsis. It's a very tough catharsis to go through, because you end up hating money. Then you're like, well, there's probably some good to it. It's just the paradigm that I'm putting around it, the belief system that I'm putting around it. That's really the dysfunctional thing.
Yes. And so many people go through exactly what you're talking about. And it's really, honestly, it's not our fault that we were taught to follow the leader, sit down, shut up, and do as we're told and follow the system. Because that's just the way society teaches us. They don't teach us to think for ourselves. Well, maybe they are now, but they haven't taught us to think for ourselves, figure out what you want, find what, follow your heart. They tell you to do the secure thing, the follow the proven model, which is a good thing to do. But if you're not doing what's right for you and your heart, then none of that is going to work. No system is going to work for you, because you're going to be unhappy at the end of it, just like you explained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now there's some people that, they find happiness, they find a certain amount of security and comfort. I found some people that they love a job where it's very rudimentary, the same things every day. It's a, a job like the machine line that's coming before them, and they can do that same task, and they're very comfortable just doing the same thing every time. They don't get challenged. They don't have to learn anything new. They get their paycheck at the end of the week. They're very happy. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of people who like that. But one shoe does not fit all people. We're all different shades, colors, personalities. Certainly, if you ever raise kids, they come into this world with their own personality. And different personalities, that for that matter. I always thought kids came in with the same personality. It just was their environment that shaped them. I found that out different when I was a stepdad for a short time. And it's so one size does not fit all. I'm glad we moved away from the old IBM paradigm of everyone has to wear a black shirt, black suit and black hat. And and everyone has to conform to the norm and all that good stuff. So where did you build out from there? What sort of paradigms of thought did you start thinking about that helped dig you out and move you to where you are now?
I developed a better relationship with money. I realized that, software engineering wasn't going to do it for me. I wasn't able to consistently stay at a job because I hated it so much. And I wasn't able to easily get to the next job because I hated it so much. And so it was this, in my late 30s, I was thinking, okay, I'm getting closer to 40. I don't know why this is like, everyone does that, like, oh, the big 3-0, 4-0, whatever. I have to make a change. That was me. And I thought, oh my God, okay, so I've got to figure this out before I get to 40. That is my deadline. And it was good that I set that deadline for myself because it made me take action. And I said, one of the big things that I did was I changed the way I felt about money. I was going to invest in myself, like overly invest until I got exactly what I wanted. Because I know that money always comes. There's no shortage of money. Even when I was homeless, it was still accessible. And so I know that money always comes and that I needed to invest that money in myself and in my business and in the direction that I wanted to go. And I was relentless with that. And that's what it took. It took me saying, okay, I've got to change this. This pattern is not working for me. I cannot stay at software engineering. I cannot keep going back and forth from traveling to software engineering. And I need my higher purpose. And I knew that was in helping people. And from that, I kind of went back to my story and said, okay, like, who can I help the most? It's well, I can obviously help a lot of people because I have such a diverse life, but it's the people who are living and they feel like they have it all, but they're so empty on the inside and they're struggling with anxiety and overwhelm, and they can't actually, and they want to still level up, right? I'm a high performer. Obviously, I have my business. And then I'm doing a bodybuilding competition every couple of years. And so I am, always trying to grow and get to the next level. And there's these people, they want the next level, but they can't get there because they have so much stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. And it's not working for them. It's not working for them because they're they're wondering, is this all there is? Exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, I remember years ago, and this was when I was still poor and coming up. I was a kid. I worked at a company, and they sent us to one of the first seminars of Anthony Robbins. This is like 1988, 89, when his book had barely come out. And he was still, he was still greeting the crowd after. You could go up to him and shake his hand after the thing. And he was a very nice guy to meet with and stuff. And he still is. I'm not saying he isn't, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
He was still new to the trade, and I was still new to life. And I remember he was telling a story. He goes, I work with CEOs, and you would think that these CEOs, once they start making, this is back in 89, of course, once they start making $2 or $3 million a year, you'd think they'd be happy. And they thought they'd be happy once they started making $2 to $3 million a year. And a lot of people in their paradigm for life is that money will make me happy. You see people constantly trying to chase money to make them happy. And if they're not, and if they are chasing money, they're spending the money to buy things that they hope will make them happy. The new car, the new trophy wife, the new house, the new kitchen, the new, whatever will hopefully make them happy. And really the happiness needs to come from inside. And that's probably what you found. And then you realize that money is just really a tool. I remember he said, that was another paradigm that he said at the thing. I remember it was it really blew my mind. In fact, now I'm remembering it again. He said, how many people in this room want to make more money? How many more people want to make more money this year? And everyone raised their hand, right? And he said to this lady in the front row, he goes, you want to make more money this year? She goes, yes. He flips her $1. And he goes, congratulations, you met your goal. And then he talked about, what the problem was about not making proper goals, and the fact that, you just want to make more money, you need to quantify that, et cetera, et cetera. But that was a pretty powerful thing. And then he made the statement, he said, a lot of people want more money, but they don't realize it's not going to make them happy. I mean, when you really, really think about what money is, all it is printed paper with dead people on it.
Right.
We put a lot of importance into printed paper that has dead people on it that we revere for some reason or other. It's basically a funeral sort of token, if you will. It comes down to it. It's like, look, there's dead people on my money. Give me something in trade of value for this.
And we don't even see money anymore. It's not even a real thing. It's just credit cards.
And sadly, you just can't put any dead person's face on the money and trade it for stuff. So there's that. Believe me, I've tried it. The FBI says no more of that. So you started reconciling how your paradigms, how you're approaching money, what was important to you. You realized that what you set out with your career goals. You found what most every entrepreneur finds, whether they realize it or not. A lot of times they find it later on, but they realize that the basis of being a great entrepreneur is helping people solve their problems, helping people resolve their difficulties, help them achieve what they want to do. And usually you get paid in a usually direct proportion to the service you provide in helping people get that quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real simple terms when it comes to building a business. I have people ask me, what should I do to be building a business? Solve people's problems. And sometimes most entrepreneurs start with solving their own, like you did, where they went, I have a major problem. I got to figure out how to solve it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to solve it, and then I'm going to tell other people how to solve it as well. Right. Yeah. Most definitely. So you lived an interesting life. You're still traveling. You're doing the bodybuilding. So that's important to you. That's a passion that you found that you loved. Let's take a look at some of the other topics here. How do you learn to distinguish? This is an interesting topic that I think you had here. Learning to distinguish what the world tells you to do and what you should do from what you really want, and how to get what you really want. Let's say I'm a listener right now on the show, and I'm in a place that used to be where I'm unhappy. How do I make that distinguishment that, hey, it's time to make a change?
Well, if you're unhappy and you're listening to this, there's a reason you're listening to this, because you're looking for answers. So if you are in that place and you're looking for answers, you have to, and this sounds like such an easy concept, but it's so difficult. Like, seriously, go home tonight, everyone go home and do this homework. Figure out what you want. Write down on a sheet of paper what you want in your life, in your business, in your relationship, in your and in your health. And if you can't be really specific with what you want, then of course you're not going to get it. Exactly what you were saying before. And so a lot of people don't know the fundamental of what they want. And so this is what I teach people to figure out. And then, of course, you have to understand who you are and build that relationship with yourself. You have to imagine that you are dating yourself, and treat yourself like you would want your date to treat you. Because
I try and do that with myself, but somehow I always end up getting stuck paying for dinner.
Exactly. That I have that same problem. But it's like people don't know how to love themselves. People throw around the words self-love, and I don't think people really understand that in the depth that they need to understand that to be able to change their lives. Because if you love yourself, if you can say, I love me, I love myself, then you're going to eat differently. You're going to treat people differently. You're going to show up in your relationships differently. You're just going to be a different person because you have so much more love for yourself, and you're going to make better choices because you care about yourself. And if you've ever been in a really good relationship with someone who just treats you like gold, that's how you should be treating yourself. But we don't do that.
Yeah, I heard this interesting paradigm the other day. It was a Facebook video of all ironic nature. You learned something from a Facebook video? Go figure. And it was, people can Google this so they're listening to the show, and I'll just give a breakdown of it. But it's a story of a guy back in old times who had 4 wives. And let me see if I can maybe pull this up on the Google interwebs. But it's a story about 4 wives of an old king who is he's a polygamous king, but this is like an long time ago, and he finds he's about to die, and he has everything. He has these 4 beautiful wives, and he goes to the first wife, and he says, "I love you, but I don't want to be alone when I die. Will you come with me?" And she says, "No, I'm sorry, I can't do that." He goes to the second wife, and there's some details here that if you Google it, you can see some of the details. I'm going to skip for a matter of time. But the second wife tells him the same thing, and also makes clear that she's going to remarry after he dies. So he goes to the third wife, and the third wife tells him the same thing. "I'm sorry, I can't go with you in death. I'll be there for you. I'll comfort. I'll go to your funeral, etc., but I cannot follow you into death." The fourth wife he goes to, and it's the one he's neglected the most. He's treated like the most crap. She's been the runt wife that he has just never taken care of, abused and mistreated and ignored. And he says, "Will you follow me to death?" And the fourth wife says, "Yes, I will. I've always been here. I've always tried to love you, and I'll follow you into death." And it's a pretty amazing story. But the paradigm of it, or the breakdown of the parable, is that the first wife is usually our family and friends. The second wife is our possessions, which obviously can't follow us into death. Certainly our family and friends can't follow us into death. The third wife, I can't remember what the third wife is, but it's something along those same lines. It's the living who can't follow you. They'll come to your funeral. They'll support you. They'll remember you. Oh, the third wife is our money, and our possessions and everything that we own. And the fourth wife, the one that agrees to go with him into death, is his own body, is his person, his soul, his being, or not his body, his soul and his being, himself internally. And that's the thing that he treated the worst, and he didn't take care of. His body's part of it. And so what he realized at the end was that he should have taken better care of that wife for all those years, because that was the one that was going to be going on the journey with him in the end. I know that's a horrible way to describe this parable, but I think if you watch a video on it or Google it, you'll probably get a more inspirational thing of it.
Yeah, I mean, that is so true. We just don't treat ourselves well. And a lot of us don't even know what we're like, the negative thought patterns that we're playing over and over again about how we're a loser and how we can't do any better and how we'll never get this or that. And all these thought patterns are going through our head all the time. And we're so hard on ourselves, and we're always punishing ourselves, trying to make our lives hard on ourselves. And it's like, if you love yourself, you're going to look for easier ways. You're going to get support. You're going to eat healthier. You're going to put the work in your relationship so you can get the passion back into your relationship. And so it changes the way you show up in your entire life.
Mm-hmm. And, the thing I want to espouse to some people in going through my catharsis, I realized that is a classic line from Fight Club: the things you own end up owning you. And the other paradigm that I picked up out of Fight Club was really important too. We live in a society where I'm buying things to impress people that I don't give a shit about, and they don't give a shit about me. So what the hell am I doing? I wanted a BMW so I could impress people. I wanted to impress myself, but I want to impress other people. Oh, Chris Voss drives a BMW. And then the things you own end up owning you, and you end up becoming enslaved to keeping these plates spinning. And the more you own, the more you have to spin the plates, and you just you end up enslaved to all this sort of stuff. I remember getting successful and then living in what I used to call the gilded cage, where everyone was poking at me and go, look at the little monkey, and look, he's covered in gold, and yeah, whatever, it's really cool. Wow, he achieved his dreams. And you're just like, wow, this is awful. And so what I would espouse to people is, number one, and that kind of comes from the 4 wives story. You may be unhappy not because of a husband or a wife or a marriage or kids or a car or a house or not having enough money or having too much money. It may be the paradigms, like you said, what you put to those things in your head, your associations to what those mean. I went through the same catharsis where I went from being successful, having all this money and having, hundreds of employees who were annoying me constantly, to finding peace at being a minimalist and being happy for the first time in my life, and being able to work and spend all day with my dogs and work from home and not have to deal with, all these problems and whatever, and making money to a point that I'm very happy. And, but, I'm not so much that I'm out buying stupid stuff that I don't need, that I'll never be able to take the grave to me, with me. And, there you go. And so sometimes it's not, a lot of people look outside themselves for, why am I unhappy? Mm-hmm. And they need to do maybe what you did, where you're like, why am I intrinsically unhappy? Now, there were certain aspects you were unhappy with, certainly in relationships and stuff.
Yes.
But a lot of times maybe you're unhappy with the spouse, or I know I've been unhappy with people. I've been in relationships, and really it was me that was unhappy. Yes. And it wasn't them making me unhappy. And I could have been happy with them, yes, if I would have changed my paradigms. In your case, like what you did with money, where you went, okay, I just need to remap this paradigm of what my association is towards money. And, Tony Robbins talks about a lot of that, about, the thing. Certainly you need to find a spouse that, someone who makes you happy in life, people that make you happy in life. I like my dogs. No matter what I do, they're always happy to see me and happy to pee on my carpet, evidently, because I have a puppy. And I guess that makes them happy. And somehow I look at their cute little faces and their unconditional love, and I go, well, beats what I used to have. Exactly. So, but then other times, like you went through, sometimes the material things, sometimes the thing we've acquired or we associate with in life, are making us unhappy, and you can't just change the paradigms. I mean, certainly if your spouse, significant other, is making you unhappy, they're cheating, or they're untrustworthy, they're just not fulfilling you as a person, as a human, maybe your goals are going different directions, then yeah, you can't resolve that within yourself, and you probably shouldn't disassociate from what you're really feeling or going about with that. But I would say look at both two worlds and go, sometimes, Anthony Robbins does talk about this. He talks about your associations, to where you take an object and you go, what is my belief system about this? And belief systems are really powerful in establishing our paradigms. And sometimes we just have to recombination, rejigger that association that we have with these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to say that, I went through this 20-year journey, like pretty much the hero's journey, right? Where I went from having it all and feeling empty and like I had nothing, and then I went on this journey, and then now I'm back to the point where I have it all, and then I'm happy, right? I'm at the end, right? Well, I'm not really, but in this edition. And I want to say, you guys, the listeners, you guys, like, if you're unhappy in your relationship, if you're unhappy in your career or your business or with your health, you don't have to get a divorce, quit your job, jump on a one-way ticket to Spain like I did. That you can shift and make changes in what you have now and be happy now. You guys don't have to go to Spain. But it's just, we think that we have to quit our jobs, because our jobs are making us unhappy, or we have to get out of this relationship because the relationship is making us happy. No, there's always, well, not always, but there's usually ways to fix this. And a lot of times we give up so easily, or we think that we can't fix our problems, or we think that it's us or whatever. But really, we can make shifts in our own lives to make our relationships better. Now, if I went back and I knew what I know now, I could have fixed the relationship. But again, that wasn't my story. That wasn't what I was supposed to do. But knowing what I know now, I could have fixed that.
So when fix it, you mean make that relationship work even though you couldn't trust the other person, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, we could have worked through some things. There was things that was, this is another long one, but there were things that were swept under the carpet before we got married, and I just never trusted him.
Let me ask you this, because this happens a lot in relationships for both men and women. Is it because they're so focused on that dream, that picture, that, you know, that 50-year anniversary, be like grandma and grandpa or mom and dad with that, you know, seemingly perfect relationship, like you mentioned earlier? They're so fixated on that they're willing to sweep things under the carpet. And because they do, those unresolved issues start to stagnate and rub just like sand would in a pearl.
I think there's so much there to talk about. I think there's just so many things that let them sweep it under the rug. And I mean, that is a huge conversation, because I've gone through all the coaching and the counseling for relationships so that I don't repeat those patterns. But yeah, but that's part of it. But really, the thing of it is we think that once we have something, that we're not going to lose it. So we don't really work hard to keep it or maintain it. We think, okay, we're healthy now. And then we think that, that it's easy just to maintain. Well, it's not. You can see no one's maintaining. You're either losing your health or you're getting healthier, you know? And so really we need to put the work in and take care of the things that are coming up. But yeah, there's so many reasons why we sweep things under the rug. We want to look perfect, right? And that's a lot of it.
Yeah. It's just amazing what we go through. So yeah, if you're, you know, I went through a thing where I grew up in a cult. I grew up highly religious. The first thing I did was throw the gear to the left and started studying the occult and Satanism and totally rebelled the other way. And certainly I've moved obviously away from that. And so I would counsel listeners who go through this catharsis to take a more seated approach and do it like what yours say, shift your paradigms, take a look at what you're doing. Look at the internals first. Look at the internals, what's inside you. Why are you unhappy? A lot of our times we're unhappy because it's our expectations that are unhappy, and our expectations are just bullshit. And those expectations are making us unhappy. And we need to realize that sometimes they might be fictional, you know, like I want to grow up and be a princess someday and marry a prince. I've been hearing that a lot lately. From
who?
With the royal wedding. They're like, she could do it, so can I. And you're like, there's only a limited number of those guys in the world. It's a lofty goal, but you know, you might get some happiness if you just kind of stick with what you can get for a little bit. I don't know. Some people would probably disagree with me. You're like, go for the goal. Okay.
I actually tell people they can have it all. So
you can have it all. Sounds like
call me.
So some really cool things. And the thing that I kind of butchered through, the four wives parable, you can take and Google that for my readers, A King and His Four Wives. This is a story that I believe originated it's an old Tibetan story about a king and his four wives. And just to clarify, the fourth wife is our body. And of course, we want to take it with us in death, and it won't. Our third wife is our possession, status, and wealth. And when we die, it goes to others. Our second wife is our family and friends. So no matter how much they've been for us, they have to stay by us up to the grave. And our first wife is our soul, which we often neglect in pursuit of wealth, power, pleasures of the ego. And this soul is the only thing that will, as far as we know, follow us wherever we go after death. And it's probably the greatest gift to offer the world. So it's interesting to go through this catharsis. I'd love to have you on again, Nichole, to talk some more about this. We should do a part 2 about some of this. I've got an upcoming podcast we've got to escape to. So give me your plugs so that we can take and have people looking you up on the interwebs.
Okay, sure. It's on my website, NicholeCarlson.com. That's Nichole with an H. My Facebook page, I have a show, Flip the Switch. And I also have my personal Facebook page, Nichole Carlson. And just look me up, and I'm sure we'll have the links below too.
Sounds good. And I'd love to have you on, Nichole. I seriously mean that, because I think there's a whole mess of other data, and I got some great data on your sheet. And so if you're a listener right now, go check out our stuff. There's a whole lot more you're going to learn about Nichole I think you're going to like. And I'd love to talk more about this cathartic experience, because I learned a lot from mine. I think I'm still going through a cathartic experience. I found I just turned 50 and learned that I really, the older I get, the more I don't seem to know anything about anything, really, when it comes down to it. So true. We can talk some more about that. The never-ending lesson: youth is wasted on the young. I hate those people. But then every time I complain about that to my mom, who's about 75, 76, she's like, "Will you shut up already? You have no idea, you young kid." Anyway, thanks, Nichole, for coming on the show. Be sure to check out our websites. We certainly appreciate you guys. Be sure to refer the show to your friends, neighbors, relatives. We certainly love having you guys do that. Go to Google Play, iTunes, go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. Hit that bell notification button so you get all the notifications on the show. And be sure to watch for some of the upcoming cool guests that we have. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.